Are you finally starting to take your music production and your songwriting seriously? Do you think that you have what it takes to make a living in the music industry? Well, this marketing podcast is there to help music producers and artists to begin building a foundation to grow their music company from the bedroom to the boardroom. And now, here's your host, Brennan Lunan. Hey guys, welcome to Music Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Brennan Lunan. And today we're recording my first pilot episode, episode 1. I don't quite have the name yet for my podcast, so if you please bear with me, I'm going to come up with something in the next couple weeks. Hopefully in the next few episodes, I'll get this all ironed out. As some of you probably know me, I am a music marketing professional. I do marketing by day for a company that produces comedy tours, and I basically set up and run marketing for big name comics such as Mike Epps and Cat Williams, and currently working with Martin Lawrence on his Lit as Fuck tour. I do a lot of consultations. I talk to a lot of people, a lot of producers, a lot of artists on Facebook, on Instagram, and I kind of, I kind of see the same patterns, from the questions that arise from the people that I either, consult for or just in passing and just chit chat. And, I see the same pain points that people go through. And that's kind of when you're first starting out and you're a, no-name producer or you're an unknown artist and you haven't really made any kind of headway yet. And, what happens is you're basically kind of stuck in a rut. You don't know what to do. You have music, you have content, you have some idea as to what you want to do, but you have no idea who your audience is. You have no idea who your customers actually are. So today I kind of wanted to go over a few topics, and what I'm going to cover today is basically I'm going to cover targeting your audience. And, first and foremost, I'd like to give a shout out to my homeboy, Trinidad Celine, who suggested a lot of this stuff from me today. And, I'm giving him a shout out. Trini, what up, man? Hope everything's good. Today basically I want to do some talking about how to target your audience and how to set up your email marketing, and what brings your audience into your funnel. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with sales funnels, I'll explain that somewhere in the podcast. If I forget, I'm going to touch back on it in the later episodes. But again, targeting your audience, email marketing, how to bring your audience, and, how to get TV and film placements, so you could actually start using your music inside of not just songs that you're trying to put on a CD that your artist is going to try to push, or you guys are going to try to push, but, kind of change the way you think and kind of change the way that you approach your music and what to do with it. And I kind of want to give you a couple of pointers, in how to proceed and how to move your music from your computer where it just sits there and collects virtual dust to actually be handed to a music supervisor, or how to get in touch with people that actually are movers and shakers that will be able to utilize your music. And a lot of this information is out there. The problem with it is that it's really hard to kind of decipher which information is good and which isn't, right? So a lot of times artists will end up looking for information, finding something, the source might not be very credible, but not having the experience to kind of determine whether or not the source is credible. A lot of artists will basically end up jumping on, fads and gimmicks and, think that they have to do all this, all this extra shit that doesn't necessarily bring them any kind of, benefit to what they're doing, and their energy is getting wasted. And I hate seeing that, and kind of, being an old head, as I'm often called. I'm 36, so I've been in this industry a long time. I come from I come from a background of musicians, and I basically want to kind of pass some of this game down to the people that are coming up behind me, so they don't have to make the same mistakes, because, especially in today's rap world, there's a lot of this talk about old heads versus new heads and how the new generation isn't respected by the old generation. Well, you know what? We failed you guys. The older generation failed the new generation because we didn't really try to mentor you. We didn't really try to give you the game as we were given it, and now we're seeing the disconnect between the older generations and the complete disconnect between people with experience and people without. And that's really, really bad for the newer generations because you guys have to start from scratch. You guys have to figure everything out. And whether or not I'm a fan of the new music is relevant, you guys did a hell of a job marketing yourself, utilizing the platforms as they're available to you, and making sure that your music is actually being heard. And I salute that. So regardless of how I feel about the music itself, I definitely salute the grind because I see a lot of younger dudes that are really grinding online and really, checking off their task lists and getting things done, and it's not about whether or not I like the music or not. That's irrelevant because music is just like art. It's in the ear or the eye of the beholder. It's not going to be the same for you as it is for me. I'm not going to hear it the same. I don't have the same connotation that you do towards it, and I don't have the same exact, relationship with the music that you guys are currently listening to. So regardless, I could still applaud the grind, and that's what's important. If you're grinding out there and you're not making these silly moves, like you're not, spamming people's inboxes, or you're not posting fucking comments in people's comment sections about your music on top of their music. So they're trying to push it and you're sliding in and you're posting your content right up, right on top of everybody because you're lazy to go out there and lazy to get your own customers and your own, fans and super fans. So again, salute to everybody who's grinding. Let's get in this podcast. I kind of finished with my initial rant. Let's talk about how one targets their audience. First of all, let's address what an audience is, right? I mean, it's kind of simple. We're all in the music business. We all understand what an audience is. Now, to me, because I'm also, very heavy into the advertising side, I run a lot of Facebook ads. I run a lot of, starting to run a lot of Google ads, Instagram as well, obviously. And the definition of audience to me is a little bit different. Now, if you consider what an audience is a group of people that obviously are, agreeable on a specific topic, item, product, whatever. Whether or not it's a song, whether or not it's, a shirt or it's, a car, every one of those products has their audience, right? That basically means that to understand the person that's going to come in and give you money. Now, ultimately, this is what it's all about. I don't care how famous you are. I don't care what you've accomplished. You're gauged on, your success is basically gauged on how much money you're making. Granted, it's not really about the money, but it's still about, showing that you are profitable, meaning that the money that you spent to get into the business, you're pulling out and you're making a profit. And that's what it's about. That's how you get clout. That's how you get, leverage in the industry. That's how you basically become somebody that's going to be able to make moves in the industry without too much constraint. If you could show that you're profitable and you're successful, people will fuck with you. That will happen. You can't avoid that. When you're successful, people are drawn to you and people want to, work with you. They want to hire you. They want to pay you money. You get to decide how much that is. That's irrelevant at this point. So let's get back to the point of the audience. And the audience to me is a group of people that, again, that I'm searching for, that I know will pay me for my product and or service. To identify that audience, I'm going to take, my product, service, analyze it to see what its strengths are, what its weaknesses are. I'm going to look inside of the marketplace that I'm operating inside of, which is the music industry in our case. And I'm going to look at the playing field and I'm going to see who's doing what in the playing field that compares to what I'm doing. So who's my competition, right? So if I'm a rapper, I'm going to look at other rappers in the same genre. So if I'm somebody like, Young Thug or like these new cats, I'm not going to give you the old names. I'm going to give you, somebody you actually could relate to. So if I'm like Young Thug or if I'm, one of these new cats, I'm going to look at my contemporaries, right? I'm going to look at people that are in my industry doing exactly the same thing. And I'm going to see what they're doing. I'm going to take notes on it. I'm going to study their game. I'm going to study their moves. I'm going to see, where they're maybe falling short, where they're exceeding, where they're covering their bases, where they're leaving, things wide open for somebody to come in and to take their market share. So granted, you don't want to necessarily steal somebody's whole blueprint. What you want to do is you want to kind of take that blueprint and you want to analyze it and emulate it. You want to make it so you could adapt whatever it is that you do and pair it with what they do in a way that they're delivering their messages, they're delivering their content, and so on and so forth. You want to kind of replicate that, without stealing and being ethical at the same time, because it's very unethical, especially in our industry. I feel, still coming from where I come from, to steal other people's ideas, to steal their, style. And so, I mean, it's fine if, a lot of music today sounds the same to me. I'm not talking about that necessarily. I'm talking more about the actual business approach. And the audience that you're looking for, will be identified by this approach. So if you are a rapper and you're actually trying to find people who are listening to your style of music, you have to go where they are. You have to find out who they are. You have to find out their age brackets or their demographics. You have to find out how old they are, where they live, things of that nature. So it helps you identify the person. Now, what I've learned in the marketing world is, there's such a thing called an avatar, and I'm not like the movie, not like the big blue creature from a, distant planet, but more just a person that you create on paper. And I'm talking about giving this person name, job, address, gender, race, everything. Because really, in reality, marketing is very, very discriminatory. It's the only place you could discriminate, right? So if you put out a message and you say, I want to only target women, that's not a bad thing. That's in marketing, we do this every day because we save money. So as an artist and or producer or whatever in the music industry, you have to really identify who your audience is, because these are the people that are going to pay you money. Now, if you're going after likes and followers, fine, whatever. You could be a little bit less restrictive. But for me, if I'm going to spend my time and money on advertising, on marketing, I'm going to make damn sure that I know who the hell my customer is. Because I get charged from Facebook, from Instagram, from Google by impressions. Now, impressions is when your ad gets placed on the medium, whether it's the timeline or the sidebar or whatever. That's what I get charged for. So now think to yourself, if you're being charged to show your ad to 5 million people, and out of those 5 million people, only about 100,000 meet your criteria of being a man or a woman in a certain age demographic, a certain race, certain place, country-wise, whether it's in America, in a certain state, or it's worldwide. You have to know all these things, because this will save you money and will limit the amount of time that you have to, sit there and let your ad run and cost you a buttload and return you shitty results, and, you get frustrated and say that Facebook ads don't work. Now, if you do this way in advance, and if you identify your audience, you will actually be able to make this avatar and give this person a name, give this person an address even, right? Because if you know as much as you can about the person, you'll be able to speak to that person directly. You'll be able to talk to that person. And when I say directly, obviously I don't mean like call them on the phone, but I mean when you do your messaging for your advertising, you'll be able to actually specify to tailor it to this specific person. And this specific person is, obviously a real person somewhere in the world, or a group of people that identify with this avatar you created. Your marketing message will resonate with them, and they'll be able to respond to it. They'll know you're talking to them. And I usually give this analogy when I talk about, targeting and, audiences. Imagine yourself, as a store owner on a busy street in New York City, where 1 million cars are moving, every day, where the foot traffic is crazy. People are walking every which direction. And the competition is just fierce. I mean, this is New York City we're talking about. So the competition is fierce. There's stores in every block, restaurants, everything you need, all pretty much within arm's length. So how do you, as a store owner, how do you resonate, with your potential customer? How do you make sure that your potential customer doesn't just walk by your store, but stops in and actually makes a purchase and, helps you keep running your business? So what I usually do with my clients in this case is we start to identify, who their customers are, and how we could tailor our message. And we work to kind of narrow things down to the most basic messaging slash, offer, to make sure that these customers understand that this is for them. So if I'm a store owner in New York City and I want to make sure that these customers don't just walk by, I may put a sign out that says, "Hey, such and such customer," "Hey, my ideal customer," or "Hey, women," or "Hey, men," whatever it is, I would make sure I call them out so they notice it. That, hey, that's me. They're talking to me, and I will make sure that my offer is specifically for them, because you don't want to waste your time and money having people, try to identify if this offer is for them. You don't want them spending time, because they won't. I mean, it's like I say, you don't want them to, but they won't. And that's the thing, is you can't make these people do something that you want them to do just because you want them to do it. Everybody has their own thing. People are going places. People are not really, willing to spend their time to kind of, give you time to explain yourself and so on and so forth. So you have to be very succinct. You have to be very concise, and you have to make sure that these people know that you're talking about them. So in a way of creating your audience, take the time to do market research, ask questions, ask, the people that follow you, the people that like your songs, ask them questions like, what do they like? What do they care about? What's important to them? What kind of music do they listen to? Are they signed up to iTunes, Tidal, or Spotify? Just find out as much as you can, because when you look at those answers and you start seeing patterns in those answers, and you start seeing, okay, so a big portion of the customers that I asked are Spotify users, or they're on iTunes or whatever. So that's a big touch point for me. So I'm going to craft my offer to reflect that answer, because if that's important to them and I see that in the answer patterns, I'll know that I'll have to create a message that resonates with that audience, that has to do with that specific platform. And I'm going to tailor my message at those people, because those are my, most prominent responses or whatever. Right. And so you kind of understand after a while that what's important to your customers becomes very kind of, ever present, and you'll be able to create something just for them so they know it's for them. All right. So targeting, again, is super important. It should be done way in advance. You shouldn't wait till last minute to come up with some, creative targeting when you're launching your ads or whatever it is you're doing, whether it's, ad launch, or whether you're just launching a marketing campaign or whatever it is. You want to make sure you know who your person is way in advance, so you could create things for that person. Okay. So that kind of covers targeting. Let's move on to email marketing. I'm a huge fan of email marketing because I'm a big fan of automation. Now, if you're unfamiliar with automation, I don't necessarily mean, inside of your DAW, where you're changing levels and, putting automation on filters and such. This is more covering automation for email marketing, of course. And the way that it works is basically you create what's called a funnel. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the term sales funnel, I recommend couple different books to read. A guy that I always follow online and kind of like my spiritual and marketing guru, Russell Brunson. He is one of the most incredible marketers out there right now. He's leading a revolution with his ClickFunnels platform. He's doing a lot with, educating people on how to create online businesses. He has two books that you really should read. One of them is called .com Secrets, spelled out DOTCOM Secrets. The other one's called Expert Secrets, and both books are phenomenal. The .com Secrets kind of teaches you the ins and outs of sales funnels and how to keep customers coming into your funnel and how to process them and what to give them and, how to treat them and such and such. Expert Secrets is a little bit more in line with helping you create an audience and helping you create a following and, kind of build this, group of people around you who will pay you and, come to you for advice and basically brand yourself as an expert in their eyes. And the reason I'm mentioning these books is because Russell really goes out of his way to kind of help you understand the email marketing part of the funnel and how that is basically, an irreplaceable part that makes everything come together and makes everything work together. So you're able to put everything in play and get off, the marketing side of things, go back to the creative side of things, go back to the music, go back to the studio while this other stuff is working behind the scenes, doing things, all hours of the night without your involvement. And all you're doing is basically just checking up on it, make sure that all the cogs in the wheel on the machine are working and nothing's grinding to a halt. Email marketing is super important. And The reason it's super important is because email marketing is the only way that you could create a traffic source that you own. And when I say you own, there's, I want to make a reference to the web traffic that's available to everybody. I don't care who you are. It comes in three different forms, right? You have web traffic that you own, which is your email list, right? These are the people that jumped into your sales funnel at one point. They've been processed. They either bought something or they signed up for something. You've given away a freebie to them. They know you. They know your brand. They might have not bought anything yet, but these are the people that have been through your process, right? That's the fun. That's the traffic you own. Then you have traffic you control. Traffic you control is your advertising. So your advertising dollars going into Facebook marketing, going into Instagram marketing, so on and so. Or I'm sorry, advertising. This is the traffic that you control because you don't have necessarily the ability to always touch those people, right? But when you pay Facebook, Facebook has the algorithm and has, all the data points that they know how to reach out. So you don't necessarily own that traffic, but you can't really reach out to Susie and Bobby. But you could say, I want to, reach out to such and such, people of this age bracket, this race, this location, blah, blah, blah. Then you have traffic you do not control, and that's search, that's organic stuff. So basically, you can't force people to do anything on your Facebook pages when you post, right? You could only hope that they do something. You can't help if people go on Google and they type in your company name, right? You can't help any of this stuff. You hope they would do it, and maybe they do, but that still puts them outside of your control. It puts them in the uncontrollable, section of your traffic, which means that regardless of the work that you do, everything may happen or nothing may happen, and you have no control over it. So again, you have email list, that's the traffic you own. Advertising, like Facebook and Instagram, that's the traffic you control. And then you have search and organic, which is traffic you do not control. All are very important. All should be considered when creating your marketing strategy. All of them should be, maybe not as important as one another, but you should try to utilize them all because you can't always pay for all your traffic because you'll just price yourself right out of the competition. And sometimes your email list is not big enough to really matter. If you're only starting out and you have a small list, but you're beginning to build it, it may not be as much traffic as you want to deal with, or as much traffic as you want to bring in and actually process. So you have to utilize all three and work your way up. And it doesn't happen overnight. Sure, if your daddy's rich and gives you a $1 million loan, which is a small loan, and to some people, you may be able to pull it off and, without having to, do the other steps and get through the initial legwork. But if you're like a regular Joe and you're just starting out in music and you want to kind of get going, all three, you have to post on social, you have to write articles if you're trying to, entice specific kind of customer, or you have to release content. So if you're a musician, you want to put out songs on a, steady frequency, you want to be consistent. You want to make sure that these people are actually, expecting things from you. And the reason you do that is because you want to capture these people's email addresses. Now, email is probably the most reliable source of traffic because once you build it up to a high number email list, you'll be able to just blast out an email. And if your list is healthy and people aren't hitting the spam button constantly because you're annoying them, you're going to get a fairly decent open rate. You're going to get a pretty good click-through rate, which means that once people open the link, they're actually clicking on links and going to your landing pages where you're trying to serve them with Facebook cookies or Facebook Pixel rather, so you could actually follow them and remarket to them on Facebook and Instagram and so on. But you also want to make sure that you're not abusing, this privilege that you have of being inside of somebody's inbox and not going directly to spam or not being deleted. You want to make sure that, you reward your clients or your customers on your email list with freebies, with exclusives. This is the most important traffic source you have. So treat it as if it's, end all be all, but at the same time, don't neglect advertising, don't neglect organic, because this is where a lot of your email list subscribers will be coming from. So it's kind of like, it's like, a trifecta that you have to keep happy. And it's like being in a polygamous marriage, with 3 women, and you have to keep everybody happy. So don't neglect email marketing, don't neglect posting on social, don't neglect running ads, because you will not have an easy time with either of those things by themselves to create a healthy flow of traffic, because people are kind of segmented mentally anyway. Some of them like to browse first and then click much, much later. Some of them are impulsive and they want to see what you're offering. And so you have all different kinds of people out there. And again, going back to the audience, that's what's important, is that you want to make sure that the audience, that you understand how this audience interacts either with your content or your email advertising and so on. And so when building an email list, you want to make sure that your customers aren't just giving you an email list because you're telling them to. You want to offer value. You want to make sure that they get something in return. In a sense, these people are giving you the keys to the castle. They're saying, okay, I would like for you to send me an email whenever you're ready. That's rare, especially these days, when a customer normally gets something ridiculous and like weighs like 150 emails that they go through a day, whether it's just junk email and otherwise, or they're at a company and they're opening a ton of emails. People deal with a lot of email, and it's important that you stand out and that you offer value and you don't ask for favors, and you don't, this is not a place for you to go in and start demanding. It's not a place for you to go in and ask for favors. This is a place where you go in and, offer people value and build your brand in their eyes, and have them remember you as somebody who's helping and not trying to just, be another person spamming their inbox, asking them for some kind of commitment to something that you're doing, or worse off, you're asking them to buy something. This is a place that you kind of want to cherish and you want to take care of, not only because you want your customers to be happy, but also because these guys will start hitting the spam button. And once people start hitting the spam button, your list becomes very unhealthy. If you're on platforms like MailChimp or ActiveCampaign, they're going to ban you, because if you're a confirmed spammer, you might as well be a criminal at that point, because they look at you as somebody that's going to abuse their system, and they're going to make it so it's impossible for you to participate, which is going to really hurt your business. So take this seriously. Make sure that you're cleaning up your list, meaning that if you're sending a lot of email blasts and big portions of them aren't being opened by the same customers, go in, scrub your list, make sure that these people that are on your list but aren't opening and consistently aren't opening get moved to a different list that you don't necessarily engage, or maybe you engage them, rarely, and you give them extra special care because you don't want to lose them, because you work hard to get them, and also you don't want to just bombard them with all these offers. Remember, people and kids and whoever else is listening, that nobody owes you anything, right? That's ultimately where I kind of begin from. Nobody owes me anything. And when I go and I approach to network with a potential customer or a professional, I go in with the mind state that they're doing me a favor, and without me even asking for anything specific, just talking to me and listening to me talk shop and giving my spiel about whatever it is I'm selling, they're immediately doing me a favor by listening to me and giving me their time, because everybody has a very limited amount of time. And Russell taught me he taught me a very important lesson, which is you can replace money, but you can't replace time. And so when you're asking people to give you their time, you're asking for more than just money. You're asking for a very irreplaceable resource that they have a very limited amount of. So be respectful and be understanding that, email is a great medium to reach out to your existing customers, but it's not a great medium to, demand or, make your offer, make sure your products and everything, your services are good, but just mind your manners and be very respectful through email. Find out how often people open email so you could kind of put that in your strategy, so you don't have to, send way more emails than necessary, or send too little emails where they don't have an impact. Again, treat email as a very important traffic source. Don't overdo it, but also don't underdo it, because if you neglect to send people updates about you, they'll start to forget about you. So now that we've covered email, I want to move on to the next topic, which is how to bring audiences, into your funnel, how to create a freebie, which in marketing terms, a freebie is something that you give away for free to a customer, usually in return for a sign up. When they provide you with their email and name, I wouldn't ask for too much more in the beginning because that kind of turns people off. So, how exactly do you bring an audience, audience members into your sales funnel when you don't have any social proof, meaning you don't have any reviews, people aren't, screaming your name on social media because of the great work you do and so on and so forth. So how do you bring these people into the fold? That is usually done, again, knowing your audience, and I always go back to that. Knowing your audience is super important. So knowing who these people are, knowing what they want is super important. When you know this, you're able to actually create, something of value that you could give away for free. Now, granted, you may pay for this, you may spend time doing it, whether it's, an article that you write or, some sort of unavailable resource with high value that you could multiply and duplicate, digitally and give away without really impacting your bottom line. Sure, it'll take some, work on the front end, but on the back end, it'll just be something that you could clone and distribute through landing pages, lead forms, and so on and so forth. So, to give you an example of what I'm talking about, a while back I did it was a PDF type of document that I wrote up where I was showing people how to, kind of begin to run their Facebook ads and what was important and what you should focus on. And it wasn't exactly like a end all be all document that kind of taught you everything you needed to know about Facebook ads, but it just gave you the tips on what to focus on and, what to take serious and what to kind of, what's important and what isn't. And that document was then loaded on my landing page or my website, page, and it was made available to customers through, social posts and running ads, and basically was like, hey, if you want to learn how to sell anything, through Facebook, or you want to learn how to, market your music and so on and so forth, here's something that you could basically read and start to kind of get a grasp on, what's important in the world of advertising. So you could further your advertising. And it did really well. A lot of people signed up for it. I had customers that signed up that wanted to try Facebook advertising themselves because they didn't want to pay somebody like me to do it for them. I ended up getting a lot of those customers because they knew that I was an expert. They understood that the information I provided to them was complicated and that this world isn't easy and that you necessarily not going to be able to just jump right in both feet and start making money or start selling things. I still have problems with Facebook ads. Sometimes I don't know what I'm doing. Sometimes I need to stop and reevaluate. I make mistakes. Everybody does. But it's important to understand what it is that you have to focus on and what it is that you don't, especially maybe in the beginning. You know what I mean? So you only have so much time in the world. So you want to make sure that you spend it wisely and don't spend it on things that, are trivial, don't matter. So my guide was pretty much designed to help producers to kind of understand that if you're going to advertise on Facebook, this is what you have to do. And it made a great freebie because these people were looking at, Facebook and going like, what the fuck do I do here? What do I do with this? And it's difficult and blah, blah, blah. And here I come with 7, what did I call it? Like 7 supercharged tips on how to maximize your Facebook ads. I forgot what the copy was on the headline, but it was something along those lines. And it was basically showing people, how to supercharge their Facebook ads, right? This does a couple things, really. So one thing it does is it shows the potential customer that I'm an expert. So I'm telling you how to do something. That means I'm an expert and you're not. And not to be like, an asshole about it, but I mean, in layman's terms, that's kind of what it says. Like if I'm showing you how to do something, I'm the teacher, you're the student. You're not going to doubt what I'm capable of because I'm teaching you and you're interested in learning. So obviously I have some kind of clout. So I was giving people the impression that I knew what I was talking about, and they started feeling by, reading this document, they started feeling like, man, this is a lot. And the second thing that it did was, after it kind of confused and scared a lot of people and, kind of started to look like a, big mountain that they had to cross to get to the other side, they decided that, hey, this guy seems to know what he's talking about. I don't. I'm going to waste a bunch of time and money and become frustrated, and I have better things that I could be doing with my time and money. And so, you know what? Fuck it. I'll just pay him and I'll hire him to do it for me. And whether it was consultations or whether it was running ads for the client, it was just a way for me to basically hand them my resume and make them, feel that I am worth, the dollars that they would spend on hiring me, because the money that you could blow playing around and sandboxing everything and making mistakes and doing it on a level where it's, costing you, you may want to reevaluate and say, you know what, like, yeah, I don't have to pay, Jim, Susie, or Fred, but if I don't, I might spend way more money, and you got to look at it that way, because your business is ran off your return on investment, right? So your ROI is super important, because if you're going to invest money into something and your energy and time, and it's going to return, the same thing that you put in or less, it's not worth the time. You want to make sure you're profiting. And the whole reason behind business is that you do something, you profit, you have more money, and you could do more things. But you still want to make sure that you could live and not just have to redump all your money into your business. So there's the need to profit. So I want to make sure that, when I'm doing something for my company, that I'm analyzing the fact that, my return on investment has to be blah, 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 or it's not worth it. If I'm not going to hire professionals to do this, I'm not going to be able to get the business. I'm not going to be able to get the traffic. So in the way of Facebook ads, if I can't run my Facebook ads, and that's my main traffic source right now, because I don't have an email list and I'm not really great on social media posting, I'm going to try this ads thing. You're thinking to yourself, that's what I have to do, and that's what I have to profit off of. That's going to be my bread and butter. So I want to make sure all that shit's running right. Do I have the time to sit there and read a million articles, books, and so on? Maybe, probably not. So you have to think to yourself, should I just hire somebody? Should I just basically, pay out this money and make sure that the person that I hire does the job right, gets me going faster and quicker off the line, where I'm not ramping up for 6 months, and by the time that I make it, to the ramp up, I already, either, way behind, or the industry changed altogether, and what I'm doing is just irrelevant. I mean, we're living in a right now world, and there's not a whole lot of time to kind of, play around and say, oh, I'll figure this out one day, it's because your competition is figuring out today. And when they're figuring out today, they're getting it done. And so now you're second to the podium. Second place isn't as glamorous as the first. You're not exactly a winner. So you want to make sure that, you're not wasting your time trying to cut corners and save some short money just to kind of, not have to cough it up, because you'd rather have money for fucking drinks, clubs, weed, and whatever else you do with your time. So, again, going back to bringing the traffic, and I know, I'm sorry, I get sidetracked a little bit, but, this all has to do with bringing traffic into your business, because that's who is paying your money. Your customers that come into your store or come into your studio or whatever it is that you do, your customers are the most important thing. Everything is about them. This shit is not about you. Nobody gives a fuck about you, because everybody could do what you could do. Even if you're like a prodigy musician, there's, just as many prodigy musicians somewhere else. Bottom line is, people don't have to stand around waiting for you unless you own the patent on whatever it is that you sell, and it's like the most fucking world-changing thing, in which case you probably don't need this podcast. But again, for everybody else who kind of just has, their beats, their songs or whatever, which is in very, very, high supply, the demand is low, supply is high. You want to kind of understand where your place is on the field, and you want to appreciate things like your audience and your traffic sources, because this is what's bringing the money in. So find a way to discover what it is that your customers are feeling pain from, whether it's physical or not. Figure out what's hurting them, figure out what they need, figure out what they don't have, that they're not being served by another competitor of yours, and deliver that, and deliver it hard, and make sure that these people that are getting it are the right audience, that they're because they're not going to respond to your freebie if it doesn't apply to them, right? So make sure it's being sent to the right audience, and it just has to be full of value, and it has to be free, because nobody's going to just come off the street and pay you money. It just doesn't work that way. I don't pay any company I don't know. If I don't, even like a supermarket, if I don't recognize the supermarket that I normally shop at, I'm not going to go in and patronize it. It's just not going to happen. So you want to make sure that, you're making an impact on the person that they remember you, and you know, giving them value doesn't always have to be, financially speaking. It doesn't have to be like monetary, like where you're giving somebody something that costs you $10 to make or something. That's a little much. You don't want to do that. But, you want to make sure that they feel that they got something from you that they weren't able to get anywhere else, and that it's, really helping them with whatever situation that you're addressing for them. All right. Um, so let's move on to my last topic, which is TV placements. And the reason I prefer TV placements over artists. Now, I'm not saying that I wouldn't work with an artist. I just don't really, that's not my goal personally. I'm a producer that really is, aimed at sync. I like sync licensing. I like to do a bunch of my tracks, hand it over to my publisher, and have it, deposit it into my sound library you know, where his relationships with television, and music supervisors, um, that it plays into getting these people to that page and having them listen to the music that I have uploaded, that I have submitted to the library. It's there's obviously there's differences between working, for sync licensing with television and film and working with artists. Some people prefer artists because that's kind of all they know. I mean, that's kind of all I came up on. I was in studios working with artists all the time, and I got tired of it. I got sick of people taking advantage. I got sick of people, just not being serious. I was taking it seriously, and they weren't really paying me enough, and then it wasn't really serious, so it wasn't going to be any back end money. The front end money was ridiculous. And so I started looking at other avenues on how I'd be able to monetize my music, and how I would be able to actually get my music to the masses, in a different medium, whether it was, through a TV show, commercial, video game, even telephone systems. Like, you got to remember, like, if you could write like kind of soft rock or like soft R&B or whatever, every time you call your doctor's office, there's something playing in the background. That music was written by somebody, and somebody got paid for that, right? And chances are they didn't have to sit in the studio or deal with these, prima donna ass rappers, or, they don't have to really negotiate heavy and hard, because this is a major corporation that you're selling this stuff to. Is this couple $100 or couple $1,000 is like nothing to them. They don't, when you work with musicians and you're a, Fortune 500 company, you think you beat them up on whether it's 500 or 1,000. I mean, sure, everybody's got a budget, but like, we're talking about like hundreds of dollars, if anything, up to thousands of dollars, maybe even more, depending on the placement, as opposed to selling beats to rappers for 10, $15 leases. Now, okay, look, I'm not going to sit here and shit on that. A lot of my good friends do that, and they're really successful at it, and they make good money, and that's their tactic. They've worked it up, and they made it happen. For me, I don't have the patience to do that, and I don't write that much music. These guys are grinding every day. I mean, I got a day job, I'm busy, but I do make music. But, everybody has their thing. For me, the reason that sync licensing works is because, when I submit, and I'm sorry, Fred, if you hear this, I got music coming for you, buddy. He's gonna be mad I haven't submitted in a while. But anytime I submit music, it's really just, here, Fred, and I give it to my publisher. The publisher puts it in my catalog, and then it's just like a fishing rod. Like I always liken, placements or even advertising to fishing, because you have your bait, whatever it is. If you're advertising, it's your ad with an offer. If you're making music for placements, it's the beat. And you throw it out there in the water, and you let the bobber just kind of like bob around, and, until something bites it and you hook something. There's really no work involved short of just finishing the track. Now, the money really is different. I mean, I know people that make, hit records that probably make a ton of money. Maybe you won't make the same money off sync, but there's projects that I've done that, paid out $2-3 grand. There's projects that I've done that was like a couple hour project that we made $2 grand on. When we did the ESPN track, and shout out to Blake Jordan, I haven't talked to him in years, that's my brother from another. When we did that ESPN joint in Pace's studio in Norwalk, and shout out to my homie Pace, again, years, I haven't talked to him, but we did the track, and was done for ESPN. Taylor DeWitt called me up, said, "Hey man, we got a couple producer teams that are trying to produce. We're trying to redo the Sports Center, and we're trying to do some shit with it for highlight reels or whatever the hell it was." And basically said, "We need something done. Could send you all the files over. You can check them out, slice them up, do what you do, and send something back." Granted, like, we didn't even get offered anything up front. It wasn't like, "We'll give you 2 grand and if I can do it." No, it was just like, "Here, can you do it?" And we were kind of hungry at the time, and it was a different era, and we were just like, "Yeah, all right." Big company, big placement, big potential possibility. Sure. We did it for free. We handed it in. Little did we know the other teams didn't even bother handing anything in. I don't know if it was because they were intimidated or because it was just, something that kind of, it was just something they couldn't get done in time. I don't know. I don't care. We submitted it 3 hours later. Fucking, if you want to hear it, it's on my SoundCloud. That's soundcloud.com, EQ Productions with the S. So that track basically ended up going to ESPN. They called us back like I don't know, 3 to 5 days later, and Taylor was telling me, he was like, "Man, listen, they want to pay you for the remix. They want to own the remix." We weren't even trying. We weren't even asking for $1. We were just happy to do it because it was ESPN. They said, "Well, they'll pay you." They sent us a fucking check. We got paid for it. I took the check to the bank. It had a Disney logo on it. The girl at the bank looked at it 17 times and brought it to her manager because she couldn't understand why I had a check that had Disney on the logo. Surely I had to have forced it. Explained to her that Disney owns ESPN, so on and so forth. But that's kind of the story that I tell all the time when people want to know, like, what my sync experience was, like, what happened, how did I get it done, or whatever. And the big brother AB, who George Cloman, who's probably one of my fucking closest friends that I don't ever really see often again because I'm a fucking hermit. He changed my life. He brought me to one of my favorite DJs slash producers, Fred Sargalini, he's a fucking amazing DJ, amazing producer. He used to be in a group, Ming and FS. And yeah, it's crazy how we ended up working, but it just was the right time, right place. I got hooked up, met George. George brought me over to Fred. Fred loved me. I got signed to the label, and we ended up getting, placements done. I don't know, people. I just think possibly that, when you're trying to all go down the same route of trying to, hit the same doorway that bottlenecks immediately because everybody wants to be a rap producer. Everybody wants to work with fucking whoever's hot right now, right? Everybody wants to get their music on the CD or the Migos or fucking Future or whoever. But imagine the competition there and imagine what you have to do to actually get a chance. Now, not to say the competition for sync is any fucking better or less, this is more of a, in both sides of the business, whether artist or the sync, you have to know people. It's all about who you know. But I just think sync is a little simpler as far as, the work that you have to do. Because after I'm done recording and mixing and doing everything that I'm doing, I'm done. I give it to Fred. It's fucking over. I don't have to do anything else. I don't have to run, advertising campaigns. He does that. I give him a portion. He takes the fuck cut. He puts it in the right hands. He makes it to TV or film or whatever it does. And I get a check in the mail. It's fucking glorious. Not to say, stop doing the artist thing and pursue sync licensing, But if the artist thing works, keep doing that and just start looking into sync because sync is like fishing. Like I said, it's a numbers game where you put a lot of fishing rods or, AKA beats in the water, and you let them sit there until the fish pulls up and takes them and gets hooked. And you'll start seeing checks coming in. And the homie Gummy Beach, shout out to him. I see him posting stuff online all the time. He's doing amazing things with sync licensing. I know he's got a great course that, people are fucking ranting and raving about. So again, go check out Gummy Beats. He's got some hot shit on sync licensing. He could, tell you a lot. Also, the homie Clint Beats. He's also, I believe, it's Clint Beats. Give me a second. Let me look that up. Clint, another, good homie of mine from Instagram. He's a sick producer. Clint Music, I'm sorry. It's Clint Music. And go check him out. He does, a lot of content and teaches, kind of like I do. Also heavy in the sync licensing game, a lot to teach. And it's just again, it's another avenue. So don't think of it as like, Brennan's telling me to stop fucking producing for, for fucking Juice World or whoever the fuck you produce for. This is more of, opening up your eyes that not only do you have to produce beats that make it to albums or singles, but you could also do video game music, which is non-linear. So you could sit there and you could create a bunch of different loops that don't have to necessarily like bridge together. They do, but they don't, because non-linear stuff, it's depending on where the character is in the game. You could change just as quickly. So it's really fun to produce, really fun to make. I've done a couple soundtracks for a few video games. Really fun to do. I love the projects. But this is stuff that once you get it done, it's done. You could then submit it into a library. It could be used by multiple sources, right? So it doesn't mean that just one specific company could use it. I've heard the same song in various shows and a lot of different commercials, and it's just it's a good way to kind of monetize your catalog, especially for things that you don't have any use for. A lot of the older beats that you probably don't think are hot enough because they're not and they're not with the times. But I got a 5-year-old track placed like this, or last year, something I did like 5-6 years ago. Now remember, anything that you play 5-6 years ago, you play the fuck out, nobody's heard, because if it never left your computer, it's not really out there. That means you're the only person who heard it. So regardless if you hate it or not, put it in the catalog, find somebody that you could, publish with, or figure the game out yourself, become your own publisher, and become, involved in the sync licensing, because that will ultimately raise your stature in the production game overall. Because, and I'll be the first to say, I know a lot of dudes that I'm friends with on Facebook and Instagram that are way better producers than me, but I've made more money than them. And that's because I know that I don't have these kind of hiccups, and I don't have these like weird like things holding me back. Like, well, I don't think this beat's hot enough. Fuck it, I'll give half mixed beats. I've had unmixed beats placed on TV shows because they needed a dirty sounding track, or maybe not so polished, for background of a club that was a fucking strip club and the speakers weren't turned to the microphone. Giving music supervisors music that's polished isn't always the answer, right? So don't waste your time so much trying to make the sound perfect, because a lot of times you won't hear the 808s booming in the background of the club. That that maybe it'll be a fucking a small radio that they'll play the song through on film or on the show. You never know. The idea really is to provide as much music as you can. You should listen to music on TV shows, take notes, make sure you understand the subtleties between the music itself, whether it's mixed a certain way or how loud it is or whatever. You want to make music supervisors love you. You want to make these guys remember you because you were easy to work with, because you came prepared, because you had everything kind of like an arm's reach, and you were making it easy for them to just take and use, and they didn't have to go searching for the name. So obviously, when you're supplying music to music supervisors, list all your name and information, address, so on and so forth, because you want to make this easy for them. You want to make it so if they need you, they could get a hold of you. Put your phone number on it. Put both your phone number in your home and your cell. Put your Twitter, your Facebook, your Instagram, whatever it is. Provide your personal information. Make sure they could get a hold of you. Make sure you respond and you look out for this. If you submitted for the next 3 months, stay on top of your social accounts. Don't just kind of sleep on one because maybe that's the one they choose to send the stuff to, and now you're not checking it and you missed the opportunity. So be smart, be easy to work with, and you will have a lot of success in this industry. Consistency is important. Make sure that you're always, producing, and you're always submitting songs. Don't be like me. I think I've, made Fred wait like 3 months and I haven't submitted anything, but he's got a new gang of beats coming. I could assure you that. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of it, folks. I kind of, I covered quite a bit today. I always, I'm always here to help. I'm on Instagram, EQ Productions. That's ECUE Productions with an S. That's pretty much me on all platforms, Twitter, I don't really use Twitter too much, although I should. I always fucking talk about using it and never remember. I'm heavy on Instagram against EQ Productions. Hit me up on Facebook or on Instagram. You're always going to catch me. You know, I work, my day job's on the computer, so I'm always accessible and I always respond. So if you have any questions, I'm always available. I do consultations. If you're interested in actually working with me and getting some, consultation about, how to market yourself, how to get, advertising campaigns going, hit me up. Let's talk about it. We'll create a plan, a strategy for you, and make sure that you have all you need as far as, a game plan, as far as a guide, to get you from point A to point Z. And, hopefully we could make you into a fucking, local celebrity. Uh, Obviously, I'm joking. I want to make sure everybody gets as much success out of this as possible. This is my first episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you very much. This is Brennan. I'm again recording to you from EQ Production Studios in Branford, Connecticut. New Haven does have the world's best pizza. I want to just put that out there. So if anybody ever wants some fucking pizza, come hit me up. We'll meet up in New Haven. We'll do some pizza. Guys, thank you so much. And I'll be back next week, and we'll talk more. Thanks.